Hello, everyone. This is Alexander Horat with the Free American Press, and today we're joined back by a very special guest, Patrick Holland. Patrick Holland is the founder of the Missouri Freedom Initiative, a grassroots effort to keep Missouri free in the state of Missouri. So we're very happy to have you back on the show, Patrick. Thank you.
Hey, thanks so much for having me back, Alex. I appreciate you.
Yeah, so there's definitely been a lot of things since we last talked. The most biggest thing I think is the war with Iran. So we saw the United States and Israel shoot a lot of missiles in Iran, and Iran has retaliated as well. And we actually saw the leader of Iran, the Ayatollah, killed, which is a pretty big deal in my opinion. So I just want to get your thoughts on all this, Patrick.
Well, my thoughts are, and by the way, I'll keep this as clinically clean as possible because we live in the age of censorship and we have to be afraid of what we say on YouTube. And we have to be very, very careful of the words we use because we have one of the planks of communism that exists within social media structure to brainwash the people, and that's censorship. And it started out as political correctness. Okay. So that being said, I do believe that this war in Iran is a distraction from something else that's happening, and that has to do with the Epstein files. And the information, I mean, it took Thomas Massey and an act of Congress to actually start releasing these files just so Congress could see them, and so we could see them, and they were redacted. In the meantime, the people are getting very upset because right now, and once again, I'm keeping this clean, Alex, so we could keep it on YouTube. I'll do the best I can, and I'll get to the Iraq war in a second here. But it seems very, very likely that the redacted names is what the people really wanted out of the Epstein files, and it's the one thing they were not allowed to have. And so a lot of people are believing that there's a lot of politicians, celebrities, and captains of industry who are in the Epstein files, and they're being protected right now by distractions. Now, let's get back to the Iran war. Now, the official reason given by Marco Rubio for us to actually assist Israel and go into Iran and do what we're doing a total leadership change. Nothing new. The United States has been killing off leaders in Iran since 1953. Mossadegh is when it started. Kermit Roosevelt actually wrote a book about it. So this is not conspiracy theory. It's not speculation. These are established historical facts. We regularly engage in regime change all throughout the Middle East. And so with us helping Israel, and going into Iran, I have heard both ways that the American people overwhelmingly support, and I've heard the American people overwhelmingly do not support this action because we literally have too many problems at home right now to be concentrating on regime change in Middle Eastern countries right now. And so I do think it was a very bad thing for us to go into Israel for a lot of different reasons. But what it is the unintended consequences. That's the one thing. We can speculate for an hour on the unintended consequences. Will Russia and China, who are big trading partners with Iran, get involved in this? I just don't know. But at the same time, it is an obvious regime change. Now, let me get back to what Marco Rubio said. Marco Rubio said, and this is an official statement he put out, he said, we knew that Israel was going after Iran. So we knew that this is what Marco Rubio said in a press conference. We knew they were going to retaliate on United States military bases throughout the Middle East. Therefore, from the Israeli action. Therefore, we chose to do a preemptive strike on Iran to take out their ability to hit as many American bases in the Middle East as they would otherwise be able to do if we did not join Israel in this military action. That's the official explanation for us killing, the Ayatollah, the leader of a country, for bombing his country. And I will remind people that when we went into Iraq in 2003, We were told that we were looking for weapons of mass destruction. When it was all said and done, the American military and our allies killed over 1 million civilians in Iraq in order to look for those weapons of mass destruction.
Yeah, so let me share my screen right now to share something. The oil price right now per barrel oil futures is $88.73. And if we look at its max in 2022, it went up to $118. So in 2012, it was like around $100. So it's been somewhat low, actually, but it's going up significantly. So I want to see your thoughts on this, Patrick. By the time this war's over, how much do you think oil per barrel is going to be?
I don't know because there's two things I think about when I think about the price of oil in regards to this new military action that's happening right now in the Middle East. Number one, how much oil does Iran produce out of, I do believe they're part of OPEC, um, and out of the OPEC nations. And I don't believe they produce an enormous amount of oil. What they do produce, I do believe they have a lot of natural gas there, which is also a very potent, powerful energy source, but it shouldn't be directly linked to the price of oil. However, Iran does have a very strong, very large navy, in comparison to most countries in the Middle East. And they can block ships that are moving oil out of Saudi Arabia and neighboring nations. And so militarily, they can actually stop those ships from going through. So therefore, the United States has put ships in in strategic areas around the Middle East to try and help prevent that. But the tensions in the Middle East always drive up oil prices, always. And it's kind of like, um, I don't know. I mean, it feels like, and I shouldn't say feels like because actually we have historical precedents for this, but it seems like that we always have to have an excuse for raising the price of oil. We're not going back to $1 a gallon, Alex. It's not going to happen. Even though we could, it is possible, and the oil companies would still be profitable. But there's so many taxes on oil and on gasoline. I mean, it's taxed every step of the way, from pulling it out of the ground to shipping it somewhere to refining it, and then the wholesalers taking gasoline and moving it to the gas stations. It's taxed every step of the way. And so for gasoline, it's almost like a sin tax, because for cigarettes, more than half of the cost of cigarettes are taxes.
Wow.
With alcohol, I do believe about 40% of the price of alcohol is tax. And I do believe it's probably about 50% of the price of what you pay at the pump is actually just pure taxes, pure taxes. So take the price that you have at the pump and cut 50, 60% off of it. And that's actually the cost of getting the oil out of the ground, the oil company having a little bit of profit, and everyone having a little bit of profit along the way, for every stage it takes from going into the ground or coming out of the ground and going into your gas tank. But the unintended consequences are all the taxes that are put on the oil, which raises the price. And so the price going up in the open market, what you just showed, is irrelevant to the taxes, totally irrelevant. Um, so, how many gallons of gasoline does a 55-gallon drum of oil make? Basically, I don't know the math on this, but this we talked a little bit earlier about unintended consequences, but I do believe this is an intended consequence. They want the price of oil to go up. They need an excuse. There you go.
Yeah, so why do you think they want the price of oil to go up?
Basically to discourage use. So basically, if you want, for instance, the old story, and it's a funny one too, is basically if we tax alcohol and cigarettes to discourage use, tell me why we have income tax again? It's really a simple question. Why do we have, higher taxes on oil? Why do we have, taxes on capital gains? Basically, I mean, everything's taxed, but when they go for sin tax, they say, well, it's to discourage use. We don't want people smoking. We don't want people drinking. And now we could say, well, we don't want people using oil because, basically the earth has a fever. That's my Al Gore impersonation, by the way. The earth has a fever. So it's all about global warming, right? And so, at any rate, if the more oil we use, the faster we burn up the planet. So, nothing can survive on this planet anymore. So, therefore, we need to discourage people from using oil. That is except for the elites. They fly around in their private jets. And by the way, Alex, I'm going to ask you real quick, do you know how much fuel, let's just say a private jet that can hold 8 passengers, do you know how much fuel it consumes?
Probably tens of thousands of gallons.
Well, it's miles per gallon is what I was looking at, because most people can equate that in their heads because they have cars. But most of those private planes, those small planes, and the big planes are worse. Most of those small planes get approximately about 1.2 miles per gallon.
Wow.
Yeah. So if you go to a 747 or a DC-10, one of the big planes, they get 4 gallons per mile.
That's crazy.
Yep. So, but that's what the elites use, and they want us to stop using, oil when we have cars that are getting 30 miles per gallon. We're actually putting out less carbon than the elites are, but the elites are like, no, 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 no. We can't have that because there's too many of you. Us rich elite people, we're a very small percentage. We can use whatever we want because we're a very small percentage. If everyone had access to what we had, then basically the earth would just burn up, because of all the carbon dioxide. And in fact, it's carbon monoxide that comes out of most of these things, not necessarily carbon dioxide, but that's another thing for another day. And I don't want to get heavily into science today or anything, but it is very, very important for people to understand this is a direct result of what we're doing in the Middle East. We're going to pay higher gas prices just because Marco Rubio said we were worried about preemptive strikes on United States military bases because Israel was going to strike Iran. Therefore, we preemptively went in there and raised hell in Iran and killed their leader. So we can prevent the preemptive strikes that that they were going to visit upon our bases all over the Middle East. It's just a snake eating its own tail. This is a very interesting time to be alive, actually, when you think about it. But we have a lot of problems in the world right now, and nothing's getting solved. The problem is we have too many problems here in the United States that need to be solved, and we're not concentrating on those. The politicians are not concentrating on those. We're not working on all the issues that need to be solved here in the United States to prevent us from sliding into second world status, because that's what we're doing right now. Remember now, at the beginning of this, I was talking about the tenets of communism the United States is taking on, and one of them is censorship. We're afraid on our social media accounts because that is part of, basically social credit scoring. Everyone's being conditioned. When you're on YouTube, there's certain things you cannot talk about, otherwise you will get a strike. And so everyone adheres to that because, well, that's where all the people are. And I want a bigger channel and I want more followers. And if YouTube is going to, silence me, then I won't be able to do that. Therefore, I will conform with keeping certain subjects off the table. Like, for instance, we can say the Epstein files. Everyone says that on YouTube. What you can't do is talk about what has been found in the Epstein files. That's what you can't talk about. And if we talked about that, on YouTube, I'm pretty sure that you'd probably get a warning at least, or a strike, because those who are not reading the Epstein files, the horrors that we're finding in the Epstein files with certain people like Ellen DeGeneres and Hillary Clinton, it would just blow people away. It would just blow them away. In fact, it becomes almost urban legend because people don't know what were in the Hillary email files. That is directly related to what we're finding in the Epstein files. Once again, censorship keeps everyone at bay to make sure you don't talk about it because it will affect your social media, scores. It'll affect your, your channel, and basically, and then ultimately, you'll have to move off the platform and go to another one that's freer. And then it's hard to find that these days. It's hard to find a platform where you could speak the truth.
Yeah, I definitely agree, and it's really unfortunate. So getting back to Iran, so we saw in the Iraq War, they said there were weapons of mass destruction, and then we sent boots on the ground and toppled the regime. And now we're saying there's weapons of mass destruction in Iran, or something to that effect. So do you think we could see boots on the ground? And if so, when do you think that could happen?
Well, boots on the ground in Iran would probably end up leading, once again, we talked about unintended consequences, will probably lead to other countries getting involved. And so that would be a bad idea. I don't think it would be a good idea for us to do that. But the people running the show don't care about whether or not it's a good idea or whether or not there's unintended consequences. So for that alone, I do believe there is a possibility that we will put boots on the ground in Iran because we need to install a new government there. Remember now, we're in the business of replacing governments in the Middle East. We've been doing it for a very long time, and it's written about. It's you can, and folks who say, "Oh, Pat, we didn't replace Mossadegh." Yes, we did. And Kermit Roosevelt, the son of FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, bragged about going into Iran and replacing Mossadegh and actually having him chased out of the country. Um, Bragged about it. That was a CIA operation, and yes, we can talk about that because others have talked about that on YouTube before. That was a CIA operation. And so that's what we're engaged in right now. But to replace a government in Iran, we're probably going to have boots on the ground in order to do that. And that was the goal of Israel. That's what Israel wanted, was rid of the Ayatollah. So they got what they wanted, but now we have to put in a new government. Israel's not going to go in there and do that. So, I don't know how to put it lightly, but we're doing what Israel wants right now. Whatever Israel wants is what the United States is doing in regards to Iran. And this is, and once again, we get into the censorship territory if I were to explain why and how. But other people have already figured this out. If you're on Twitter, there's plenty of very intelligent people that explain exactly why and how we are now just doing the bidding of Iran or of Israel when it comes to Iran.
Yeah, and I think it's crazy how we gave Israel nuclear weapons in the first place. Like,
Yep. Yeah, and I don't know that that's even been publicly acknowledged. I think some people think Israel kind of developed nukes on their own, which they did not. We gave them to them. But keep in mind, we gave Iraq all kinds of chemical weapons. Remember when we went to Iraq in 2003 and were searching for weapons of mass destruction? We were certain they had them. Well, the thing is we were looking for all the chemical weapons we gave Saddam in the 15 years leading up to the Iraq War. Mustard gas, sarin gas. I mean, we gave him a lot of stuff, and he was using it on his own people. And so it turns out that we couldn't find it. Whatever he didn't use, he most likely gave to Syria, and or for hiding purposes, or basically transported them to Syria, most likely. And this is why we didn't find them there. But what the American government forgot to say when they said Saddam does have weapons of mass destruction, we are going in and we're getting rid of him because he's a threat. What they forgot to say is we gave Saddam those weapons of mass destruction. That was another, because Saddam, basically got in with the help of the CIA. He was the CIA's boy, for a long time. So, like I said, that was another time where we actually went in and replaced a government in the Middle East. We meddle in the Middle East too much, far too much. Ron Paul has talked about this ad nauseum. For any of you who want to know a lot more about us going in and replacing regimes in the Middle East, the United States, along with Israel, you need to look no further than Ron Paul on YouTube. And he's been covering that for literally about 25, 30 years.
so if there are boots in the ground in Iran, what countries do you think would be most likely to try to help them?
Well, once again, I did say Iran was a pretty big trading partner with China and with Russia. And so they've got some pretty strong financial ties, and who knows, maybe they have military ties as well. I don't know. But I do suspect that Russia and China will get involved at that point, possibly other nations, but um, those are the two strongest. And I hear so much weird stuff as I talk to people. I hear some people saying that the Middle East is totally turned on Iran, and they want regime change there too. And I've heard others say the Middle East is not happy about the United States and Israel meddling and in replacing regimes in the Middle East as well. I don't even know what to believe anymore, and that's part of the interesting times we live in, censorship and the like, is we have a lot of disinformation out there now. And I think that's by design. We really don't know what's going on. But if we listen to the government, Marco Rubio, and because I don't think Trump ever as eloquently stated why we're in Israel or why we went to Iran, but Marco Rubio did. And he said it was a preemptive strike because Israel was going to strike Iran. And because of that, their military analysts said they will respond by going after U.S. military bases. And so they said, well, if that's what they're going to do, if Israel hits them, then we might as well hit them first. And, make sure that we take out their capability of hitting, American military bases. It's just wild. I'm not even sure how to answer some of the questions because I'm not sure that we have all the right information anymore. But I do know since we did take out the Ayatollah, we are definitely going in to install another government. They're not going to have free elections. I mean, that can't be allowed, by U.S. military standards, U.S. CIA standards, U.S. political standards. We have to go in and decide what government that country needs, right? And so that's what they're going to do. And that's why, unfortunately, boots on the ground is kind of a likely scenario.
So with boots on the ground, do you think that the American government has enough military to sustain that effort, or do you think they would reinstate the draft?
That's a good question. I don't have an answer for that. I've been talking to I talked to someone recently who told me that we can actually operate in 7 theaters simultaneously throughout the world. And I said, I just don't believe that. I don't think we have a big enough military to even do that. We really don't. But I've had other people tell me that we're capable of doing 2 theaters successfully at one time. And so, at any rate, how many places are we? I've lost track. I mean, I don't even know where the United States is, because I think a lot of wars have been stopped. I mean, we're not in Afghanistan anymore. We're not in Iraq anymore. So where are we? Can we have a theater? Basically in that area. And yes, we can, but we'll probably have to pull resources from other places. But the last I heard I'm talking about military personnel. I'm not talking about hardware, equipment, missiles, bombs. So scratch that stuff. I'm talking about people. Last I heard, our U.S. military was about 1 million people, 1 million folks.
Yeah.
And so, at any rate, that's kind of what you look at. And then you divide them up between theaters. And then you start seeing, basically how many. And once again, they're on military bases all over the planet. We have military bases everywhere. So I mean, after World War II, we just put them up everywhere. So at any rate, I guess that's the best way I can answer your question is with another question. How many people do we have in the military, and how many theaters of operation are we in right now where we're conducting military operations?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that question. I think you're right, though. It's around 1 million soldiers, though.
Yeah, I think it's somewhere in that neighborhood. So, you look at China, and China, gosh, how big is their military? People say they have the worst, rattiest military in the entire world. Well, they have a lot of people. So whether or not they have the worst, rattiest, if they have 5 million soldiers coming into Iran, I meant, and we have, let's just say 100,000 American soldiers in Iran, we're outnumbered. So if people say nonsense, that's when we use cruise missiles and drones and this and that and the other thing, basically, on these fronts. Well, that may be true. But once again, we're expending. Now we're going into the resource side of things other than human resources. How many bombs do we have? How many tankers do we have that can, refuel planes that are in the air? How many of those do we have? I mean, do we have enough military hardware to take care of that many people? And then what's left when that's done if another military action starts someplace else? And I'm sure that they're building bombs constantly, bullets, grenades, planes. I mean, you name it. I'm sure that they're constantly being made. But can we replenish them at the rate that, the scenario that I put out, 5 million Chinese versus 100,000 Americans?
Yeah. That's definitely a good point. So, one thing we didn't talk about was the Ayatollah being killed. And he was the leader of the biggest Shiite Muslim country in the world. There's a lot of Shiite Muslims in Iraq and a few other countries, I think, like Azerbaijan and a few others. But I just want to see, do you think he's now a martyr for all those Shiite Muslims that are in the world?
I don't know. I really don't know at this point. The caliphate goes forward no matter what. And so let's look at it from a different perspective. I'm about to, kind of bend light a little bit on you, Alex, but let's look at it from a standpoint or a perspective of what the long term goals are of the Shiites, which is the caliphate, world domination. So the Muslims are getting into Western nations all over the planet through illegal immigration, and the Western nations are letting them do it. And this is basically a long term plan that they've had. They call it the caliphate to actually take over the planet politically, religiously, and every other way by literally just outbreeding every other, religion, every other race, outbreeding them. And so, at any rate, that plan is in full force and full swing right now. And would they jeopardize how much progress they have made by infiltrating other countries right now by doing something like you suggested, by using it as a battle cry for an outright war to activate what they say are sleeper cells in the United States of America when they're desperately trying to take over states like Michigan, Dearborn, Michigan. I'm sure you know about the Muslims there. Austin, Texas. Up in Minneapolis, Minnesota with the Somalis. I mean, they're making terrific progress on actually taking over the United States of America politically, financially, and possibly religiously as well. Would they jeopardize that in order to start an all-out war with the West? Citing our Ayatollah was our idol, and he is now a martyr. And for basically for what you did to him, we are now starting a war with the West. No, I think they're going to continue their infiltration. That's the smartest move, because they've done it so easily just by literally. I mean, all they had to look at Minnesota. I could talk about that because I come from there. 30 years ago, I moved to Missouri. In Minnesota, the infiltration was literally just paying off certain people. And that's all they had to do, and they got pretty much everything they wanted. So, you pay off the governor, that's Tim Walz. You pay off Ilhan Omar, she's a representative, from that area. She could not have won election without the Somali population in that district that covers Minneapolis and a few of the suburbs. Um, so, will they risk everything that they've accomplished in the last 15 years in America in order to have all Americans hate them because they're starting a war with America, possibly internally, with what they claim are sleeper cells all over the United States of America? It's not a smart move. And so, but at the same time, I don't want to anticipate whether or not the people who are controlling the situation consider that smart or not, because I don't know who they are.
Yeah. So, Patrick, is there anything else you'd like to add in this video?
Yes, I would like to encourage everyone. The Missouri Freedom Initiative basically was started with a very simple premise: is that it's too late to save Washington, D.C. We must focus on our individual states. And for those of you who know the Constitution, and oh yeah, that's a great picture. That was when we were visiting with the lieutenant governor up in Jefferson City. That was about 6, 8 weeks ago. And so we had a great time up there. He gave us quite a bit of time in his office. We were talking to him about the possibility of looking into getting rid of property taxes or personal property taxes, as opposed to what they're trying to do in Missouri right now, which is get rid of state income tax. So that was what happened in that picture. So what we do as a group, as Alex just showed you, and great timing too, is we concentrate on the state of Missouri. We concentrate on keeping it free and making sure that they don't take liberties, if you will, with the people of Missouri, the way that the federal government takes liberties with the people of America. And so that's what we fight for. That's what we work on. We don't work on the federal side. We don't care about the federal side because virtually everyone is bought and paid for in DC. But the difference is our politicians in the state of Missouri, and I'm talking about our senators and our representatives, state senators and state representatives, we can get to all of them literally right in the Capitol anytime we need. In fact, they live among us. They're our neighbors. And so we're much more likely to actually get them to respond to us than the people in DC. And so that's what we work for. So thank you very much for, bringing that up, Alex, and letting me at least give a little bit of perspective, my perspective on what's going on. But there's nothing that you and I can do on the federal level to stop these military actions, like the new war that's been started in Iran by going to your state. There's nothing you can do about that. But my assertion is very simple. It's the focus of everyone should be where they can actually affect change, and that's at the state and local level. You can't affect change on the federal level unless you have a big, big, big checkbook. That is the only way to do it. And by the way, our organization does not take donations. We do not have a bank account. We're not a 501c3. We simply take no money. It's really simple. Every single person in the initiative is on their own time and their own dime. And so that's what makes our organization so very interesting. And also an anomaly to our politicians in Missouri, who are constantly trying to get me, basically in trouble and trying to get me to register as a lobbyist, because that's where the rules change on what you can do up in the Capitol building. And so we are not lobbyists because there's absolutely no money in our organization, and we don't give money. So at any rate, a lot of states could really, really do well by having an organization very similar to ours, where the politicians can't control you by labeling you.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with you, Patrick, that we need to start at the county level, get your county fixed, and then your state level, get your state fixed. And then
Amen,
once you get
brother.
once you get your state fixed, then maybe we can get the federal government fixed. But
That's right, because the states came together to form the federal government, right?
yeah.
It's not the other way around. And if we have enough states that have cleaned up their own backyards and gotten rid of corruption in their states, those states can band together and start fixing the federal government. That is the only way the federal government gets fixed, folks. The swamp is much, 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 much deeper than most people can possibly imagine, unless you have actually spent time there or know a lot of people in DC. These are the people who know that there is no hope. There is no hope to fix DC. And I've been asked repeatedly to qualify that when I say that, and I say no more. I am not talking about who I talk to or anything else in that regard anymore at all, because people are reaching out to me for political access, and I'm not doing it. So I will tell you that there's some very, very smart people in DC that know that it's far too late to save the federal government, but they are not going to speak about it publicly. And that, so what do you do in that case? You fix your states. That's it. That's all you got. And if you don't do that, then you just kind of lend yourself or give in to communism, because that's what's coming, or some form of totalitarianism that includes feudalism, which is very close to communism. People always challenge me on that as well. Feudalism is very much akin to communism, because you're not allowed to own property under feudalism. All the property is owned by the wealthiest people and the government. And the little people like you and me, Alex, wouldn't be allowed to own property, under feudalism. Remember, you'll own nothing and be happy.
Unfortunately, I think we're already under a feudal system in America with
We
property
are.
tax.
We
Uh,
are.
it's
And
gonna get even worse than that, though.
correct, correct. Because they're going to make it so expensive people can't own property anymore. They'll have to rent.
Exactly. Yeah, I definitely think you're right. And I think everyone who's watching this video should definitely. Oh, can you tell them about your email mailing list, how they can join that?
Sure. Yep. If you go to our website, there is a link to click on to join the email list. And that's basically how we keep in touch because we have been heavily censored on all of our platforms, with the exception of Twitter hasn't really censored me. They've throttled me, but they haven't censored me the way they did before Elon took over. Before Elon took over, I was in the Twitter gulag all the time. It was 12-hour timeouts, 24, 72, sometimes 1 week timeouts. When I said, once again, I'm sorry, I'm going to take a minute to tell the story here because it plays into censorship. When I was on Twitter, this was 2022, I'm thinking. I put up on Twitter a tweet talking about how they actually redefined what a vaccine is. And this was the CDC. The CDC did this, by the way, redefined the meaning of a vaccine so that the COVID vaccine would fit under the category of a vaccine. And I even posted evidence directly from a source that most liberals love, which is WikiLeaks. Or, I'm sorry, Wikipedia. I'm sorry, Wikipedia. And it had it right in there. It told the story, that they redefined a vaccine, all that fun stuff. And they even gave the date, and I believe it was June of 2021. But I got a 7 week vacation over that because, and this is the explanation that Twitter gave me. That was my one and only 7 day vacation from Twitter. And they said that it was dangerous information. They didn't say it was misinformation. They said it was dangerous information. And that's why I got that 7 day vacation on Twitter. And that was early 2022, January of 2022, I believe, is when I put that out. But there was absolutely nothing false about what I put in there. But apparently the censors on Twitter felt that information was dangerous and therefore shouldn't be on their platform. So at any rate, it's kind of like the government saying national security. We can't tell you anything. National security. Hey, uh, you know, sometimes you've got to tell the American people what you're up to. And the fact is, if we don't start standing up and actually letting them know we're really, really pissed off about certain things that are happening right now, they will keep doing this stuff, folks. Though never ending. And I want to remind people, I know we're on YouTube, and I'm going to take another 30 seconds, Alex. I know we're on YouTube, so you have to be careful what you say. But the fact of the matter is, the information in the Epstein files, that has to come out. No matter what Trump thinks, no matter what Congress thinks, no matter what the Supreme Court says, that information needs to come out because basically we have the possibility, the theory, the possibility, the hypothesis that some of our leaders in DC are doing some really horrible things to children that go far beyond what you would normally think of when it comes to Epstein files. And those assertions have been made, but the names have been, redacted. So we need to find out, basically if these things are true or not. And we can't get to the bottom of it if we can't have hearings, if we can't, literally start at, like, look, Ghislaine Maxwell, she's supposed to be in prison for the rest of her life, right? And so at any rate, was she in prison for? Does anyone know? She's in prison because actually none of her court case was made public. Nothing. It was under the strictest scrutiny and silence that actually happened, that Ghislaine Maxwell trial. And so she's in prison, and the official reason she's in prison was she was trafficking children. But apparently there are absolutely no victims in this crime because only she went to prison. So there's no other perpetrators. Apparently she molested all the kids, apparently, according to, I don't know, man. But she's the only one who went to prison. So at any rate, but she was trafficking children to people, and their names did not come up. No one's been arrested. There's been no charges. There's been no nothing. And these people are in our government.
I know.
That's the problem.
I think it's terrible, and I think it needs to come out. But unfortunately, the way the federal government is, I don't think it's ever going to come out. Like the
Well, that's the
JFK
thing.
files, they never released all the JFK files
That's
at
right.
all.
That's
So
right.
it's
But I have a
unfortunate.
sneaking suspicion that other nations actually have access to this, and it will get out one way or another, probably through another nation. And
That's possible.
blackmail happens between nations all the time, gang. And I suspect that if what a lot of very smart people on Twitter are saying is true, that's why we're helping Israel right now is through blackmail. Israel's got some dirt somewhere on someone, possibly Trump. Who knows? And that's why we're helping Israel with the overthrow of yet another Iranian government. How many times have we replaced the Iranian government? I think this will be the sixth time that the CIA and the military have gone in and replaced a government. I'm sorry, I kept saying Israel. I mean Iran. In Iran, we just keep replacing governments in Iran. You know, it's just, and of course, we didn't start doing that until Israel became a nation.
Yeah, it's true. And I would just like to thank you, Patrick, for coming on the show and providing all this great insight on all this information. And I'd just like to say to all the viewers watching, if you can please subscribe to Patrick's website and the YouTube channel and the X account, that would be great. And if you could please subscribe to this channel, that would be great as well. And please share this video with all your friends so we can get the word out to as many people as possible. Thanks again, Patrick.
Hey, thank you, Alex. You take care. God bless you, man.
God bless you all, and you all have a good day. Goodbye.